Okay, getting ready to get the centers for the bolt slots to go in, and then once we get going with that, we'll be almost done. We got a little bit more to do. All right, let's watch this thing. Catch this edge. And there we go. Okay, last time I wound up talking to a dead battery on this. I'm using my iPhone 8, the one I've retired, and trying to shoot some video with it and see, because it seems to have the GoPro works fine, and it does a lot of great stuff, but zoom is not one of them. So I'm trying to get in here with a little bit tighter shot so you can kind of see what I got cooking. So we found the edge, we zeroed out the Y, because we're going to be feeding out, and we're going to be lining up with the slots. Okay, I did some milling, some pocket milling, and it isn't pretty, guys. I'm a mechanic learning to machine. Let's always keep that in perspective. Don't follow me. Just, what I do is like to be humored by my attempts to improve myself. So from that standpoint, here's where we are. Let's see if we can get it going. Now, it's this is the Touch DRO. I probably showed it briefly in a couple other videos, but it works out just fine for me. It's, as I mentioned, not high end, but you know what? The little dude gets it done. So I don't have the desire at this point to spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars. I do have the lathe to do, as I mentioned in another video, but as far as right now, I've been using this for several years, and I basically built it off a design off of Yuri's toys. It's built off of a Texas Instrument MSP board, and it's been running fine. So, and there's new updated versions to that now, and I want to probably look at one of those. There's a kit you can build for like $40. So if you like to solder a little bit, I kind of do. So I'm just going to bring this up. You can go ahead and get one of those boards, and then you order a couple of eye gauging scales. 42.62. Okay. Lock the Y. All right, and I'm going to lower this. Okay, and I'm going to bring this down right there. I know someone's going to get upset, but I'm just going to make a mark. Okay, and I'm going to pick it up, and I'm going to get a different perspective. Okay, that looks pretty good. And 42.62. All right. So from there, what I need to do is mill a slot here. This is where this is going to go on, and the bolts are going to be sliding through, and it's going to clamp from inside that pocket. And then all the rest of this mass is going to hold this thing down and together. So the bolt's really not going to be holding a whole lot. It's just going to be keeping in a position. And this is a 8.6 millimeter end mill, and the bolt shank I'm looking at is 7.85, I believe. And so it's going to get about a millimeter of side clearance, so half a millimeter each way. Hopefully, if it lines up right, I'll get almost a stand and drop it into position, and it won't have a lot of wiggle room to be moving around. The slots will actually help support the whole mass. So let me get this squared away, and I'll bring. Okay. You remember I built that prototype? That has been an absolute wonder for me, just to double check everything before I waste a lot of time. So here's the bolt itself, or here's the model itself. If you notice, I've cut a little slot right here. Yeah, right there. Okay, so from that one, I'm just checking the washer and the depth of this slot. Okay, so from this washer right here, I've got just enough side play here for this washer to go in, so I've kept that pretty tight. And if you look right there, there's the center of the washer, so that will be roughly the center of the bolt. And then I've got just a little bit extra, so I think that slot could probably be a couple millimeters less, but I think 25 is not too bad. So, all right, let me get that done. Okay, I'm going to change the position here. That first is just that little 5 millimeters. Let's see if it'll just ease its way through that real quick. I've got the X set to 0. I'm just going to move on in on that. I think it'll chew right through that aluminum without much hesitation. What's that? Doesn't appear to be all that grumpy about it. Again, it's only that, just that little bit, 5 millimeters, and the rest of it's fairly thin. Millimeters. Those of you who haven't been here before, this is my little Rockwell Delta mill. Delta Rockwell at the time. It was a US, it had a fundamental change of names floating around, but it's Rockwell from Rockwell International. They all changed names as the economy tightened up. All right, we'll call that 25. Over there and see what we got. All right. Chip brush, why is it always gone? Why is the chip brush always gone? My son-in-law, as I was talking the other day, probably told you before, but he said, "Dad, how many screwdrivers do we need?" I says, "One more than we can find, son." That's the right answer, always. Okay. Looks like we have a good slot there. Looks like everybody's doing fine. We left enough meat to get stuff done. All right. Let me get set, and then I'll make that next cut. And then after that, we'll deburr it, and then we have basically, if everything's right, and it might not be right, because I always like the movie Iron Man, the original one, where he says, if my math is right, and he says my math is always right, I'm the other guy. My math sometimes is right. But we'll try to do our best in this case. We'll get set up for that cut, and then if it fits, and then we have the last remaining part right here, which is to cut that slot, and then we have some 6 millimeter set screws for the tool to basically tap and drill, and then we'll be ready to fit it on the lathe, so hang in there. I'm just taking a breather before I finish up with the slot and the bolts on the top. It fits. I won't lie to you, I'm off center in the pocket, but I'm on center with the bolt spacing, basically dead on. It jumped out of the vise while I was working, and I measured stupidly, and here's where we are. It fits. works fine. I've been able to get into it. Very proud. I have new set of little Sun-X wrenches. I've got wrenches out the wazoo being the mechanic for many years, but several different ways to get in there. One question was, how am I going to get access to it? You can see right here, right there, I've got very easy access to get in and loosen and tighten. And I tell you what, put your hands in. Oh, I'll tell you what. Yeah, camera cut off. Hopefully this iPhone's working pretty good for you. It looks very in focus. I'll figure it out when I'm editing, but I just want to give you a better shot of some of this and be able to zoom in. Yeah, I've got some big beefy washers under there to displace the load. The pockets obviously are not gorgeous. I'll explain about that later, but I needed a win here as it's freezing in this garage. It's for those of you in Australia, it's minus 17 C. Actually it's probably minus 20 C by now. It's hitting the evening. So, but this dude, that is going to be rigid as all get out. So we'll find out if this whole project's a failure or not. But at least the bolts are straight and the block is on there, and it won't be very hard to get on and off. And then hopefully it's going to deliver the results I'm looking forward to. So I will bring you back. We'll get that slot right here, and then we will put those bolts across the top. And then once we get all the red, hopefully you guys caught that in my comments, I was using die, or the layout die, and I unscrewed the top, and the little sponge didn't come with it. It stayed in the cap. So when I reached and I twisted, it went kapop and then splashed all over everything. So it's not just your shop. It's mine, probably more often than yours. But anyway, that's why there's all that red. I'm like, my God, Dan, take it easy on the die. That'll all be gone here shortly, but that's kind of the funny story among many funny stories about me. So, all right, we'll bring you back in a little bit. Well, good morning, or afternoon actually. Just working on the slot. So we've been milling 1 millimeter depth of cut, just taking it easy. I'm hand feeding it. Yes, I could have power fed it, but the way my luck's been running on this project, I figured I would just take it slow and steady. So I'll get a pass in here. Heating up 1 millimeter. I could go more probably, but as I mentioned, I'm just taking it slow and easy. This is not a paying job. I haven't done one of those in, gosh, decades. Little Rockwell's having no problems with it. Getting a little finicky though. My three-phase inverter has been getting a little bizarre. Or my variable frequency drive, sorry. The phase inverter's over on the surface grinder. Every once in a while it will pop. This is a Cillian Power, just a little cheapie off Amazon, 1.5 kilowatt. 221 phase to 3 phase. Every once in a while it just pops and goes you. I'm guessing it's an overload code. So I'm looking at it, I'm like, well, what's that all about? So the motor probably could use some love, but once it gets rolling during the day, it's fine the rest of the day. So okay, probably one half of the slot is done to 16.5 millimeters. Now we're going to step over and get it. We didn't break anything, thank God. The part didn't jump in the vise, again, thank God. And then we'll get this done. Easy fix, no problem, but I was impressed with that. It's not to 16.5, but I just wanted to give you an idea that there's the fit I have so far, and ever so slightly. Now, I'm going to open that up a little bit because there's more than one of these out there in the world, and the height difference, so it's a nice, there you go, Max. Sandvik, nice. I owe that to my friend Jimmy, who through either complete mistake or whatever, he dropped off a box of lots of very, very, very high-end, better than I'll certainly buy, lathe tools. He's getting on, but I think he wanted to make sure they had a good home, but at the same time, extraordinarily generous. What a great guy. I wanted this under just a little bit here, which is fine, so the tool is completely inside, not by much, but just enough to say that it is. And then we're going to be bringing in the set screws from the top coming down. I'm planning on 4 6mm, so there'll be more than just a little bitty thing. And then that should lock that into position. This is the opposite side. It's actually going to be on the other side, but you get the general idea that I'm going to open it up probably another 1/4 millimeter just to allow tool variation. I have another one. Probably should check it right now. Again, as I mentioned, generous. Yeah, extraordinarily generous. So there's a Sandvik there. And here is a heavier duty Iskar. Beautiful tool. Its fit is just right on the money too. I would, well, you know what? I probably should leave well enough alone. If it needs more later, well then so be it. But I'll check these on center. I may have to come back and do it to allow me to shim up and down. But I think these two, by the time you get through with all the nonsense, if you look at that, they're pretty much almost dead on. And they're both in the slot. Okay. We're over on the lathe, and we have the Sandvik in upside down. If you can see that, I'd say that's pretty much dead on. Okay, there's the Iskar. Just resting in, nothing surprising, nothing big, but I'd say that's pretty much dead on. Let's just not cheat. Okay, well, since I was getting ready to drill all this stuff, I said, you know what, let's see if I can expand what I do with this Touch DRO. Just to refresh, the software is free in the Android store from Google Play. The module basically takes the signal from the eye gauging scales that I'm using, and then basically it does a Bluetooth broadcast to the tool itself, which is just on my old Samsung Tab A. So from this one, what I was doing is like, hey, let's see what these points are. Right down here, you see add a point. So what I did is I went through and I added the spot drill points across there where I said I would. My line was a little off here because I wasn't measuring it right with the thing, but it's accurate to what I wanted. So as I went through and I did the initial center drilling, I just added the point, and you can see them over here. So from point 1, I'm at 0, 0. So it takes over and goes back to the reference of that point. For instance, I'm on the same y-axis, no problem, but we're moving on the x-axis. So if I go to point 2, it's going to tell me that from right now I'm 19.95 millimeters away from that point. And then if I go right here in this view, it's going to clock down and bring me right back, just like the big boys on the DRO. So what is nice is when I go and I drop that back in, boom, it's right there. So just a little enhancement in the little software here to help. Now again, it can do bolt circles, it can do lots of crazy stuff, but I just thought this was a nice innovation. If you haven't played around with it, if you have one of these, it's actually pretty nice. The other element is when you do the bolt circles, it'll actually display, what was that? it'll actually display the graphic on there, and it'll pick up on the next closest coordinate, and you just basically steer to that point where it's already got it recorded based on your bolt circle creation. So sorry about that. We are on point number 6, 20 millimeters to move. It's going to clock it down for me. So far, Touch DRO has been rock solid. All right. So from that one, in honor of Bruce Witham, who knows, a lot of you know Bruce from Perth, Australia, down with Max. He likes the dark, stinky, smelly stuff for drilling and tapping and stuff, and I have to agree. I'm currently using the Odie stuff is what we have. I'm sure it's not quite what Bruce has, but I think his has a tad bit more sulfur than ours, I'm guessing. I don't know. So from that one, we've been just making our process here, going through it. Okay, all tapped, ready to go, mounted. The Sandvik tool is installed upside down. You can see the tip towards the bottom there. And we have a piece of random, probably looks like aluminum. Okay, I'm going to fire it up and let's see if we can do anything worth all this effort. One of the reasons I wanted this where I could get up close. I'm going to be right up against the chuck. Right from there. And again, it's just random piece of metal. Alright. Let's see what we can get here. Cutting it dry. That piece is loose in the chuck. Okay. Let's get a little bit of run out. Turn the spindle speed up, about 350. just grabbed this out of the box. Okay. Let's get a little bit of run out. Turn the spindle speed up, about 350. Just grab this out of the box. Okay, random piece of brass. Random piece of steel. Okay, well, disaster with a little Sandvik. I was able to straighten the teeth out. I don't know if it'll ever be right or not, but I don't know if it was up for the challenge. So I've salvaged one of my other ones. This is a Iskar parting tool. It's not exactly perfect, but this junk steel that we blew the Sandvik apart on was actually, it's work hardened on the outer surface. So we're going to go actually cut through that and then get in there and let it do its thing. So again, not a perfect mounting. It's not exactly perfect, but it's in there. Let's see if we can make it work. I've slowed it down to like 240 RPM. It's going to get loud, so just hang in there. I can feel the resonance coming on. Get through that work hardening. At least that's what I think it is. It sure seems to change dynamics as we get in. Okay, aluminum, a hex bar, interrupted cut. Boom. Not bad at all. I would have never gotten that to work without 57 different tries with what I was using out here on this side. So let's get another sample. Okay, another chunk of I don't have any idea steel. Look at that. We even got just about all of the nutty. That's not too shabby. I don't think I would have done that without a lot more drama. I'll bring you back. Okay, random aluminum bar. Still turning at 240 RPM. Anybody's into that? Got the nub. Random metal Kickstarter shaft off of a Honda 500. Yes, I broke it with my mighty leg. Probably bent it too, if you can hear the chirping. Okay, first time ever for this lathe. We're actually going to power feed with a parting. Here we go. Nervous moment here for a nervous father, I guess. I've got to turn that really slow. It's an ISCAR 32 by 3 or 32 by 5, no, it's 32 by 4 insert using the ISCAR blade and the ISCAR holder that's been cut down to fit the size of the block there for the parting tool. Doing just fine. Again, that's kind of a wide blade, but proof of concept. Never in the history of this lathe at this house has it ever completed that kind of a thing without incident. So I'm gonna say that the failure we had with the ISCAR, that was a not ISCAR, with the Sandvik, that was on me, 100%. Too small a blade, trying to do too big a nasty piece of work. So I believe by design, I'm gonna give a shout out to Max. Yeah, I think your dad was right. It works absolutely much better for a small lathe. One thing you probably saw in a couple of other videos is that thing moving or is it me? Well, I did a double check of the rear ways and there was about 4 thousandths, maybe 6 of movement in the back corner of this way adjustment right here. There's 2. It's actually kind of an interesting adjustment setup on the Harrison. Hopefully you can see that. You get a cap screw which goes through and it pulls a plate up. This right here on the outside edge, this ring is actually the stop. So you tighten the bolt which pulls the plate up, which pinches the way, and this set here is how you do the stop. So you don't go too far. You adjust this outer ring, then you tighten the bolt, and then I set up my indicator on there. And strangely enough, I was able to get like 4 thousandths pushing down, and then pulling up I would get a couple. So it was really kind of floating that corner, and I'm sure that wasn't helping anything for anybody, but it's there. These cuts, obviously, I didn't have the carriage locked or anything, so it's showing very, very good manners. So let me get something else and see if I can power feed that. Not that this is the biggest thing. I don't do that much parting work, but I think it's like, you know, hey, let's find out. Is it rigid enough to handle it without any problem? So that was aluminum. That was kind of a Nerf toss. Let's see what we can get something a little more. I'll bring you back. And just bring you back to this for just a second. Get that to focus. That's the power feed. If you remember from the cuts I was doing, you saw all those rings. Well, the power feed obviously has a nice steady feed, so no problem with that, but nice. That's new. unknown piece of brass. Little out of round piece of brass too. Just a little bit of a nub. I did a little bit of machining on it to bring it square with the block. I'm going to go hands-free for the side all the way. See that it's the ISCAR. I've got it where it's catching 3 of the screws and it's in that pocket nice and tight. This is flush now here. This was where it was a little too thick. I'll give you an angle there. So it's sitting square against the block. It's sitting square into the pocket, and there's no support here at the bottom. Well, that was kind of the way the tool was made, so I didn't worry about it. Now, obviously, it's got overhang that I would rather not have, but in the meantime, for restoring my sense of worth, it worked out pretty well last night. So we will keep that one around because it did a pretty good job. Let me try something else. Okay, crisis averted. We didn't break anything. On the auto feed for the carriage, it has a clutch, and it had popped over because I was trying to go too fast. So same setup, same everything. I just downshifted the speed, and it seems to be working out just fine. Probably hand feed a lot faster than this, but hey, let's let it do its thing. We are 52 RPM and pretty slow. Now, I haven't adjusted the gears for the feed. It changes a lot of everything, so come back on that. But finishing up here, looks like we're passing up without any further incident. Okay. Ported that off nicely. A little bit of a nub. We're there. So let's chalk that one up to, that one's on me. But it recovered nicely. We didn't break anything because there's shear pin on the other drive for this lathe. And this, basically the other one has a clutch feed, obviously for this very reason. But once it overcame it, there's no stopping it. So I just loosened the tool to take the pressure off and then start it over, then reset everything, and then you just saw it finish up without any further problem. So that's it. I think I'm going to call this one a success. I've got a couple other tool blades ordered. I tend to think I'm going to stick with the blade like that. It seems to have held up better than the small parting tools. I'm sure they're perfect for the small applications, but again, mileage will vary. It was probably on me. I can probably try the ISCAR and it probably would be just wonderful. However, at this point, let's just go with that. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. If you like the content, please think about it. No cost, and I don't make a nickel off of this whole drama, but I do enjoy it. Made a lot of friends all over the world. So thank you. Have a great weekend.